where I was going. And it was so crowded, and I was so tired, I just wanted to lay down, but everybody's standing because there's no space anywhere. And I saw a little bit of space underneath a seat. Now these seats were just wooden benches, and the floor was as grimy and dirty as you could imagine. And it took me about 10 minutes to get through the crowds to crawl under this seat. And a family on top were like kicking their feet, just like kicking their feet back and forth, and was coming into my face and kicking my body. And then they started eating peanuts. And I love peanuts. But what they would do is they had peanuts in shells, and I was starving. I had no food for a couple days. I was on these trains. And I was laying there curled up, and they would take the shell off the peanut and throw it down, and just all of the peanuts would come in the shells. I didn't get a single peanut. I was just getting the shells. And the whole family was on this bench together. Then the way they were eating the peanuts, they'd go like this to that little skin and blow it, and the skins were all coming out. Shells and skins, and I was breathing, and the skins were coming in, and I was laying there like this. And I can tell you, I was thinking, this is luxury, that I'm actually laying down. And I remember thinking, and I'm telling you from my heart, this was honest, I remember thinking there, I am more satisfied today in this little situation than I used to be with Gary when we were staying in his Aunt Shelley and Uncle Don's house in Beverly Hills. Because everything is according to our perception. According to the need, we really appreciate something. Just a place to lay down. I was so grateful. I was so happy. It was so luxurious. I know I was appreciating more than people in their big mansions. That was a good instruction. So I went to the Himalayas and lived in jungles and met with different rishis and sages and yogis and lamas. I traveled to many places in the Himalayas. Then I came down to the plains where I stayed in Bodh Gaya and studied Buddhism, the place where Buddha attained enlightenment. Under the Bodhi tree I used to sit and meditate. And I went to Varanasi, one of the holy places, and I remember I sat for many days from sunrise to sunset watching bodies burning at the ghats where the cremation pits were to try to understand what is death, because I was told by different holy men that when you understand death, you really can understand life. So I was really an experimentalist in spiritual ways. And one yogi I lived with in the Himalayas, he taught me how to find edible herbs and leaves, and he taught me how to live in the jungle with nothing. Different medicinal herbs that were growing freely. And he taught me how to live with wild animals. Because in the jungles of Himalayas, there was leopards, there was elephants, wild elephants, there was panthers, wild boars, a lot of snakes, pythons, cobras, vipers, scorpions, mosquitoes. And I didn't have a tent, or we were just sleeping on the ground in caves or under trees or on riverbanks. And he taught me something very special, how to live in the jungle with your neighbors. Because where he was taking me, there was no other humans. He said, if you honor and respect them, if you feel that because you're a human, you're superior to them, then they're going to get you. And you have no defense against them. We didn't have any guns or nothing. And if you recognize that these animals and these snakes and all of the others and reptiles, that this is their home and you're their guest, give them their space. They will give you your space because they could sense. They could sense your fear. They could sense your ego. And if you love them, they'll respect you. I remember when he was teaching me this, it wasn't like you're reading it in a textbook, at home or in a classroom, because we were right there. I had to apply it immediately. But it was so beautiful. And then he taught me something else. How to beg with dignity and integrity so that people will respect you and honor you as a beggar and not think you were a useless parasite. When we came into villages. And then he told me something else, which he said it was more difficult than dealing with the animals. How to deal with other sects of wandering sadhus. You really have to understand how to deal with them and respect them according to their faith, according to their traditions, according to their natures. He taught me so much. And I remember thinking that I'm learning more practical knowledge that's really changing my life than I did through all the years I was in school. This was my feeling at the time. But I want to tell you this, my brothers and sisters, which is really extraordinary. He did not speak a word of English, and I did not speak any Hindi. All of his lessons were through motions of the hands, raising of the eyebrows, pointing to things, glances. Somehow or other, he could communicate so much knowledge and wisdom to me because he really loved me like a son and really wanted to teach me, and I really honored him like a father. And where there's that connection, the transmission of knowledge could happen even without the use of language. He was a very supernatural person. And in our travels I learned that he had all these powers, but he would never show them to anyone. He just lived alone, traveling in the jungles. Anyways, I moved on. And eventually, after about a year, I was in Nepal. I was living in a Tibetan Buddhist monastery in a village called Swayambhunath. Have any of you ever been there? There's a monkey temple, it's called, on a hill. And in those days, I haven't been back there in a long time. It may be a city by now, the way the world changes. But in those days, around that monkey temple on the mountain was nothing but rice paddies, as far as the eyes could see. So one day, I just decided to take a walk. For no reason at all. I was studying with lamas and monks, and I was meditating. And one day, after some time, I'm just going to walk. So I 2 hours. And I started walking back. I think I was sleeping under a tree next to a monastery. And I was walking back, and I saw clouds forming in the sky. It was the monsoon season. They were dark clouds. And I could understand there was going to be a torrential storm in a matter of minutes. There was thunder. and lightning was streaking in those black clouds. As far as the eyes could see. It started drizzling. And I only had one set of clothes like this that one sadhu gave me the first day I was in the Himalayas. They were just like this, but white, but without t-shirts. And I was thinking, I don't want to get all wet now because, you know, being just walking around in a monsoon storm is really, really a difficulty. I was looking for a tree. There were no trees. I was looking for some shelter. There was no shelter. But I saw what appeared to be a little man walking with an umbrella, maybe about 50 or 100 yards in front of me. And I thought, I'm going to get under that umbrella, because we were the only two human beings in that entire rice paddy. From horizon to horizon, I didn't see anyone else. How many of you have been to rice paddies? There's just a little ridge about this wide that borders the paddies. And inside the ridge is the big square rice paddy, and in the monsoons, it's about this thick of mud. Mm-hmm. And that's where the rice grows from. So I was running on this little ridge to try to catch up, and I was almost slipping into the mud. And finally, I caught up to this person, and I snuggled right behind him. And we were walking. And because the nature of that little ridge, he couldn't really turn around so much, and I was right behind this person, and he just kept walking. He never turned around. He just kept walking. And I was right up to him, under the umbrella in the pouring rain. And I guess about 15 minutes, 20 minutes passed. And then the rain subsided. And I was going the wrong direction. And I thanked him. And that person turned around. The man was shocked. He dropped his umbrella into the mud and looked at me. And I looked at him. And I cried out, "Gary!"
Oh, no way.
He cried out my name. Together again. Under the most mystical arrangement. We shook hands, we embraced, we were absolutely shocked. We couldn't speak for a few minutes. We just looked at each other like, how is this possible? I remember after Gary cried out my name, in those days it was monk, which is actually the English translation of Swami's. But we didn't know that then. Monk, Gary! And then there was silence. And then Gary, from what I remember, his words were, "No one will ever believe this." No, you can speak.